John Hook's Newsmaker starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker. I'm Ellen McNamara in for John Hook. Later on in the program, I'm speaking with a former Secret Service agent about Sunday's attempted assassination of Donald Trump at his golf club in Florida. What the Secret Service did right, and why are they short-staffed, and what should they be doing in the future? But first, Maricopa County is the fourth largest county in the country, and the job of the county recorder is a critical one. They do keep public records, but they're also in charge of voter registration and early voting. Current county recorder and Republican Stephen Richer just lost in the primary to Justin Heap. So Heap is running against Democratic candidate Tim Stringham. Now, we've invited both to come on the program, and Tim accepted our invitation. So Tim is here. Tim, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me on.
So first off, just for people who don't know anything really about you, tell them a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. I'm from Tempe, Arizona. My family actually first came to Arizona in 1874, so we've been here for quite a while. And following in the tradition of my father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, I went off to join the military. So I enlisted in the United States Army in 2009, served in Afghanistan in 2012, and then after law school at Notre Dame, I actually served on active duty in the U.S. Navy as a JAG Corps officer, and I continue to do that actually in the reserve.
Wow. And you have been a Republican? It was up until recently?
I wouldn't say recently. I've probably been a Democrat for about 10 years now. I don't remember when I changed my voter registration, but I would tell you that the first vote I ever cast was for Republican John McCain for president in 2008.
Okay. So you're running obviously for county recorder. What makes you qualified for this job?
Yeah, at the end of the day, the county recorder's office has 140 full-time personnel, thousands of temporary employees who come in and work on our elections. It's a leadership position. I've led soldiers and sailors on 4 different continents, working on human rights programs, working on large redevelopment programs, and I'm confident that I have the skills to lead a large team.
Why do you want this job? I think that's the bigger question, and I know that, I've seen some other interviews, and you're obviously in communication with Stephen Richer, who lost in the primary. He's been open about the death threats that he's had. He's been fighting with people who share conspiracy theories online, on social media. He's in a defamation case, battling Carrie Lake. He will probably get some damages. They're in the damages portion of that, right now. But it has not been an easy road for him and for a lot of elected officials, frankly, during this period in our political history. Why on earth would you want this job right now?
You're crazy if you want to get into politics, but if you're crazy if you leave politics to the people that are in it nowadays. We can't all sit back and watch the country start becoming more and more vitriolic and then not try and step in and settle it down and do something. I've spent the last 15 years of my life either on active duty or in the U.S. Naval Reserve. I'm not used to taking the easy road for things. I've gone 10,000 miles away to defend the Constitution overseas, and I think it's important that we try to figure out a way to actually just have honest, thoughtful conversations with one another here in Arizona. And if we can't do that, then I don't understand the point of everything else. There's no point in taking another job if the country's collapsing around us because we can't have decent conversations. You mentioned that the attempted violence on the former president, that's completely uncalled for. And I think we need people who run our elections who are trusted messengers. I hope that as a veteran, people trust that I have their best interests in heart, that I'll protect their right to vote, no matter whom they vote for. And we felt it was important to come back and take a stand here and try and do something important.
You recently had a debate. You showed up. Justin Heap did not show up. Why was it important for you to show up? I mean, it wasn't, I guess, technically a debate, but why did you decide to show up?
Yeah, people do have questions about our elected offices. It is paid with taxpayer money. You should have concerns about how the elections are run. I think it's very important that the county recorder be somebody who's transparent, who can take some tough questions. We have had some problems with our elections, whether it's printers not working, or we just recently saw the news about voter roll errors potentially. Yeah. It's part of the job to take tough questions. I think we've been very blessed to have county leadership who has been very transparent in answering those questions, and I hope to continue in that tradition.
Yeah, I know that just came up, the voter rolls. I mean, and the discussion of that is, well, is this going to cause more doubt, in the process, or cause, I guess, cause problems? And if you are transparent, I think that can help, but certainly social media doesn't help with all of this, and certainly when we're like 40 some days until the election.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting for people who don't know the recent problem, we had a computer glitch in the MVD department that's been around now for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And so this passed through quite a number of administrations. I think the people at Maricopa County Elections Department should be very proud that they're the ones who caught the glitch. It's super unfortunate timing. It's my hope that every one of these people is able to vote and that nobody's disenfranchised. But you know, when you run a really large department with hundreds of people and tens of millions of dollars, one, you need somebody who's going to be a diligent leader to try and stop those problems. And when they do happen, somebody who's going to be honest and forthright and continue to lead the team and tell people to hold their head up and keep working hard.
Yeah, and it will, of course, be solved in the courts. So this is something that we will continue to keep following. Justin Heap, your opponent, he has, at the state legislature, there are 2 things that I wanted to bring up. The first one, he voted in favor of hand counting ballots. And if you remember anything about the cyber ninjas, you would remember that audit. It took a very long time. What is your opinion about hand counting of ballots? It's
a nonsense proposal. You can have concerns about the elections. We need to have reasonable solutions to real problems. Trying to say that we're going to hand count 2.4 million votes when the ballot's going to be 4 pages long, 2 pages front and back, and have those results faster, because that's what he's promising. He's promising that we'll have results faster than we currently do. That's an absurd suggestion. There was an article that came out by a journalist back in March that said we've had tabulation equipment going back to the 1800s in this state. You have to go back 150 years to find a time where we didn't use some form of tabulation. Hand counts obviously have a place. We want to be able to audit batches. That's a part of our system currently. To say that we have doubts about the election and therefore throw out the entire election system and run up the cost of our elections to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, that's not a rational solution.
He also voted to end early voting, which, you know, a lot of people here in our state do take advantage of. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so as a member of the military, I have voted by mail from Afghanistan, from Korea, from the United Kingdom, and from Hawaii. I was able to do so because I had the protections of federal law. However, I don't think those are a unique concern for service members. We have an enormous aviation industry here in the state. If you're a flight attendant who gets called up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you weren't expecting to be working that day, I want you to be able to take that business. I want you to go be fully employed, and I want you to know that you had the chance to vote. The easiest way to do that is give people the option to vote early. It's an option that 80% of Arizonans take advantage of. I think it's a great way for you as a citizen to hold your government accountable. I think that's the bottom line here, is we're responsible for our government. You have a duty to vote, but we also have duties to our family, and those 2 things shouldn't be in conflict with one another.
Something else that Heap has brought up, he talked about that the current voter rolls were not being cleaned and not being maintained by the current office holder. What's your opinion on that?
Well, it's not an opinion. Look, it is a fact that over the last 2 years, despite the fact that Maricopa County is growing, we have lost 200,000 voters from the voter rolls, net loss of 200,000. So even as we're adding voters, the current county recorder has brought the grand total on the list down 200,000. So the idea that we're not scrubbing the rolls, opinion aside, is contrary to fact.
You know, to win this thing, you are going to, I was talking politics about the tent, and to bring people into your tent, you are going to need Republicans, you are going to need independents as well. How are you going to do that?
Well, look, the number one question I get is, why is that even a partisan office?
Oh.
People want to vote, regardless of whom they vote for. People are very interested in making sure that their government is accountable and responsive to their needs. The overwhelming majority of Republicans vote by mail. And my father and grandfather were Republicans who voted by mail under these programs which were passed by Republican lawmakers in the state in the 90s. We've had 30 years with this mail-in voting. Never in that period of time have we had a Democratic majority in both houses of the legislature. So the idea that there's anything that's particularly partisan about mail-in voting, again, it just flies in the face of fact in the history of Arizona. I think regardless of what your party affiliation is, turns out people want to make sure that they can vote. I don't think we need politicians who are choosing the voters. It's important in America that we have voters who are choosing the politicians.
If you do win this thing, is there something about the office that you would like to continue doing? is there something about the office that you would like to see change?
Yeah, well, the number one thing I always say is that I think good bosses listen first. And the thing that I learned as a leader in the military for 15 years is that you're typically not the smartest person in the room. Leadership is about putting people in the right position, and so I want to make sure that I listen first. But one thing I think we've done really well over the last 8 years is trying to be transparent, letting people take tours of the tabulation facility, and I think we need to keep doing that. If we keep speaking thoughtfully to people's concerns and showing people that we care about their concerns and we're addressing those concerns, showing people how the system actually works, then I think we'll slowly build back faith in the system among that minority of the population that has heard some of the negativity that isn't always true.
Tim, thanks so much for coming in. We really appreciate your time and good luck with, again, about 40 some days to go until the election.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Yeah, and again, we did reach out to the HEAP campaign and they never responded. Early voting begins, by the way, on October the 9th. Coming up here on Newsmaker, a former Secret Service agent is talking with me about Sunday's second assassination attempt of Donald Trump. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Newsmaker. Almost 1 week ago, an armed man was found by the Secret Service hiding on the Trump golf course in West Palm Beach. A Secret Service agent went ahead, one hole ahead of Donald Trump, who was playing at the time, fired at the alleged assassin, who then ran off. Trump was not hurt, and authorities say that this suspect never had Trump in his line of sight. Still, a man with a high-powered weapon got within a few hundred yards from him. Former Secret Service Special Agent in Charge Frank Boudreaux Jr. is here now to talk more about what happened. Frank, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And you know this property well, and you know some of these other Trump golf properties pretty well. Tell the folks here about your experience there.
Okay, before I was a Special Agent in Charge of Phoenix, I was in El Paso, and then before El Paso was over the protection squad in Miami. So Miami is one of our large field offices, and in the Miami field office, you have West Palm Beach, and you have obviously Mar-a-Lago and a lot of the Trump golf properties. So I was part of the team or oversaw the protection squad there, the team that did the vulnerability surveys for Mar-a-Lago and some of the other sites, Trump International and the golf courses, and would regularly go there and review it when he was sitting president from 2016 to 2019 when I was there.
And these are huge properties. I mean,
Yes.
golf course. I mean, this is a huge area to protect and to keep an eye on and to make sure that no one is there who should not be there.
It is, and there's a big distinction between an official movement and a movement that is swept and posted and an off-the-record movement. So if it is known well in advance that he is going to golf there and he's golfing, and it's on the schedule and with known guests that he's golfing with, or maybe he's making an appearance there, it's posted up, it's swept and posted. So when I say swept, it's a security sweep that involves explosive ordnance detection, so EOD. So that would involve K9. It would involve manual sweeping of every single area and then posting. So once an area is swept, an agent is put at a fixed post to monitor that area, and they don't move from that post because it's secure after it's been swept. That can take hours for a site. And so that's why you really need to know in advance if it's going to be swept and posted. Then you have observation there. You're also going to have counter surveillance in the area and surveilling the area. This is for if he's president. And I have heard that they have upped the protection level to similar to the presidential levels. So when someone does something off the record and they say maybe 10, 20 minutes, hey, I want to go, whatever, play a quick hole or this or that, or go to the store, the security is not going to be nearly as robust because the advance in the posting and the bomb sweeping is going to be severely limited.
Does that make the Secret Service kind of panic a little bit when someone like Donald Trump or Joe Biden or someone says, hey, I just want to, go for a bike ride or play around a golf and it's not planned? And I mean, obviously you want them to live their life to a certain extent, but just with everything that's been going on lately in politics, I mean, I'm sure there's a little
everything
pause.
has evolved. When I first came on the Secret Service in 1997, President Bill Clinton used to like to go for jogs sometimes. He would go jogging in Washington, D.C. and run the mall and occasionally stop at a McDonald's or whatever. And so those were some of those were off the record movements where literally you don't know where you're going. And so that McDonald's he's going into hasn't been swept. So you're relying strictly on the inner perimeter for protection there. And then maybe the advanced guy that got there maybe a couple minutes at a time, but it's not going to be swept for bombs. It's not going to be magnetometers, metal detectors over every single person that's in there. Search, that's not going to happen. So that's the difference. And when you're talking about an outdoor place that butts up to the public, that's very hard to do an off-the-record movement. If it's truly off the record, not planned and not posted, it's a lot more hazardous than one that is planned and posted.
You know, we spoke with you following the Secret Service failure. I mean, it was an epic failure at the rally in Pennsylvania. This one,
Yes.
though, in your opinion, did the Secret Service do a good job protecting him and moving, you know, ahead to that hole that was ahead and finding that suspect?
It's kind of like if it's truly an off-the-record movement, which that's what people are saying. I haven't seen anything otherwise. Then they did do a good job in finding it. Obviously, you don't want that to happen. If this was an official movement and they knew about it ahead of time, then you would say no. You know, when I was there for official movements to the golf course, you know, you have that outer perimeter swept and posted with marked units, in addition to undercover agents that kind of patrol the area. So that wouldn't have happened. I would think that person would have been detected. From what I've heard is that person was there for 12 hours. I mean, so had that been an official movement, I would hope that they would have seen that. I mean, that's shocking that someone could be there and even the general public wouldn't notice someone camped out outside a gate for 12 hours. But kudos to the agent that did react and stop anything bad from happening. There's people in the front, there's people in behind. There's a bubble that the shift and the inner advanced agents work, and that did work. What needs to be done and expanded is that exterior perimeter for all of his events. I mean, you really need to treat him on the same level as all the other candidates. Yeah. You know, the president and the vice president, because for known threats, he has the highest threat level. And there's threats that maybe we don't know about, but the ones that have been made public and the ones that we do know of, and obviously the two recent attempts, you know, you need to treat them at the highest level because it would be catastrophic if anything happened to them. I
mean, we've heard that the Secret Service is struggling right now with staffing, and on Capitol Hill, there's discussion to increase funding right now. I know that you're out, but I know that you probably are still talking to folks who are still within, you know, the Secret Service. You still have friends, former coworkers.
Yes.
What kind of is the discussion happening right now? I mean, are they short-staffed, and what's happening within the agency?
I can tell you. So this is September, and this is in a non-campaign year. Secret Service agents just can't take September off. One reason is it's United Nations General Assembly. It's in New York. So the Secret Service not only protects the president, vice president candidates, it protects every head of state that visits the United States. So whenever, you know, say, you know, the King of England or the Emir of Qatar or you know, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas comes to the United States, there's a Secret Service detail on it. So the United Nations, I think there's 180, 190 member nations there, and there'll be well over 100 protectees when you have the countries and the spouses, such we also protect. So right now, no one is taking a day off for months or for weeks. There's several people that I'm sure that haven't had a day off in several weeks, and it was like that before this happened. So that's when I said they're really stretched thin. Unfortunately, the staffing model has always been for the non-campaign year. So staffing levels, I think they were saying, hey, this is a non-campaign year. During a campaign year, we'll have Homeland Security or another agency help us out. But I think they need to adjust it to staffing levels for campaign year because the campaigns have gotten longer. Mm-hmm. It's no longer, you know, 8 months or a year. I mean, you're having people starting probably with when Obama ran, where they're campaigning a year and a half before the election.
Yeah.
So they just need to get, and I think you need some outside of the box thinking. One problem with recruiting is that it's very hard to be a special agent. When I was there, I think it was the top 2% of applicants got through, or maybe it was even down to 1%. So maybe you need to have a different type of category of employee, one that's obviously worthy of trust and confidence, passes a background and polygraph, but like maybe doesn't need to, score 10 on the physical fitness test or have a college degree. Maybe you could get, retired police officers or something else to help out, augment the exterior perimeter. Obviously the agents that are around the protectees, those, would be your typical special agents for the Secret Service. But I think they need some help on the counter surveillance as well as the technical security. And there are people, I do know one very well. He was my assistant special agent in charge in Phoenix. He was very familiar with the drone program. He's actually back in Washington. But they just need to really expand those specific things, the exterior perimeter and the drone program, not the counter drone program. They have that, but I mean on a proactive level where the drones are being used for surveillance with the cameras, and we would call it Agent Sony, and you'll see a lot of that in New York where a camera helps out on the exterior perimeter.
When you talk about the drone programs, and you kind of talked to me a little off camera about, having a drone over a golf course, for example, and, doing better surveillance, but what can be done, elsewhere? Is that kind of what you're talking about, where they use that technology and they will become, a better agency moving forward because of it?
Well, you would just have more eyes. A drone can see more than a person can see. With the off-the-record movements and with the unscheduled movements, the problem comes with the manpower and posting. You just don't have 25, 30 agents sitting around without an assignment. So typically, like say for instance, he's in West Palm Beach. So the Miami office is one of our bigger offices, but it still doesn't have enough agents. And this is when he was president to adequately cover the residents, the airport when he comes and goes, as well as sites. So a lot of the vast majority of agents are a big chunk of agents are coming in from out of town. So they're coming in from out of town for specific assignments where they're assigned. Say he's going to go to Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so these people are going to go to that event. He's going to go to golf on this day. These agents are assigned for golf. So if you don't have an assignment for them, there's not just a pool of 20 agents that have nothing to do, that are just waiting. Yeah. There may be a few, but there's not going to be, you're talking about a golf course that has wide perimeters. I mean, it's going to be really hard to do. And it's the same thing with notifying the local police. When they know ahead of time, when they know 24 hours ahead of time, or even 12 hours ahead of time, 6 hours ahead of time, hey, he's going golfing, they'll have enough time to get the resources to dedicate him to help you. So that's the thing. I think going forward, they're probably going to try to limit these off-the-record movements and just make them more official. The unit out there, when he was president, there was always marked units on the exterior perimeter. That's a deterrent. So they probably did not have this for this off-the-record movement. I don't know if they did or not. But I do know in Butler, they did not have any counter surveillance.
Frank, it sounds like, when you're talking about people maybe coming back, it sounds like, I know you probably don't, but it sounds like you'd probably be a good man for the job to come back to help the Secret Service. But I know that you probably don't want that job. But Frank, we always appreciate talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And the campaign, we're talking about it, only about 40 or so more days to go until the election. So anyway, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I just want to say, agents are working hard, and agents are also apolitical.
Yeah.
So there's been some writing like, hey, no one wants anything to happen on their watch. Just want to be as supportive to the troops that are out there, because I know that they're working hard, long hours without a lot of days off. So
yeah, absolutely. Frank, thanks so much, and we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker. I'm Ellen McNamara. John Hook will be back next week.